So I wanted to talk and spend a little bit more time about the application process because I appreciate it can be quite confusing. So whether you are a UK or an international student, everyone that applies to UK universities applies in the same way. So you will apply in your final year of school and you will apply through an online portal called UCAS, UCAS Hub. And if you go on the UCAS website, you find tons of information on how the application process works. But I wanted to summarize some of the key features. So when you apply for university, you will be asked to pick 5 courses at 5 universities, or it could be 2 programs at the same university. But I would not suggest that you pick more than 2 programs at the same university, okay? Then you will need to submit additional document. You will need to submit the grade and subject requirements. So you need to make sure that you meet the minimum entry requirements for the subjects that you're applying for. You will also need to submit a personal statement, which I will talk a little bit more about in a second. It's a very important piece of document. You will also need to submit a reference from one of your teachers. And in the case of Imperial, there's some additional step as well in the application process. So these are the admission test and the interview. So entry requirements, the first step of your application. So every university in the UK will ask you to meet some minimum entry requirements for the specific program. And we do accept a number of different qualifications. Most UK students will take a qualification called A levels. And then some international schools will also take a qualification called International Baccalaureate, or IB, also referred to in brief. Another qualification that you might hear is AP. That's mainly American curriculum universities. But for most of you studying in Greece, you probably be taking the Apolyterian. And yes, Imperial does accept Apolyterian, and we will have some equivalencies for the specific grades, for the specific subject that we require too, okay? Unfortunately, for some subjects like mechanical engineering, just taking the Apolyterian, it's not enough to qualify as a minimum, okay? So we would ask you to take, on top of the Apolyterian, we would also ask you to take 2 more external exams. So we will ask you to take 2 A levels. This will be in mathematics, and will be in physics, for example, and there will be a certain grade. So the grading system in the UK is by letters. So it would be an A or an A star. In the case of Imperial, it's an A star or an A, okay? And then there's also a minimum requirement for the Apolyterian, usually between 19.2 and 20. Now, meeting the minimum entry requirements for Imperial, so achieving an overall score of 20 with 2 A levels at A star, does not guarantee entry for Imperial program, because we are a very competitive university and we receive a large amount of applications from students. They've already exceeded those entry requirements. So our admission tutor, in order to pick the best qualified students for the program, I put in place additional criteria that we look at. Most universities will also, most programs will also ask for a test. For mechanical engineering, we have introduced a test called ESAT or ESAT, not to be confused with the SATs. We run this test in collaboration with Cambridge, and it's a test for testing your knowledge of physics and mathematics, and it's a multi-choice test that you can take in Greece. You can take this test at one of the Pearson VUE test centers, and you'll need to register in advance for this test. There are usually 2 dates for the tests, one in October and one in January. But please note, you can only take this test once. If you attempt it in October, you cannot retake it in January. Okay. So because the test, we receive the test results directly. So if you are taking it twice, you'll be wasting money the second time that you take it. And as I said, this is a multi-choice test that tests your knowledge of mathematics or physics. It would usually cover the curriculum that you already studied at school for those subjects, but there might be some additional topics that you might have to review, especially if you are taking the test in October. There may be some additional studying that you haven't covered yet that you might have to look at or independently. Okay. If you go on the Pearson's website, you can see the tests, some of the example tests, you can see the topics, and you can prepare as well for the tests. But this test is extremely important. If you don't take this test, we cannot consider your application. Some departments, like mechanical engineering, don't just have the test, they also have an interview. And the interview, it's an online interview that you will take, you can take after you applied for the program. And it will be with one of our program directors or one of the professors from the program. So someone that knows the subject that you're interviewing for. Now, it is not a subject interview. The first part of the interview will test your motivation, the reason why you want to study Imperial. They may ask you why specifically you picked mechanical engineering. And then the second part of the interview, yes, they will test your logical skills. It could be perhaps a equation, it could be a physics problem, but it would be something you've not come across before. And it's not to catch you out, it's again to test your reasoning skills. Can give you the key deadline and for 2009. Obviously, this will change slightly. Application usually opens in May of your final year of the year before you finish school, and then you in the summer you will register for either the ESA, you will register for the ESA test for mechanical engineering. If you're applying for the other programs like computer science or any other program, there is a TMUI test, so which I haven't touched on here, but you'll find the details on the website. Then some interviews might start in November, but all of the students will be interviewed by the end of February. There is a specific deadline by which all students need to submit their application, and it changes slightly every year, but it's always in January. This year, the deadline is on the 14th of January at 6 p.m. But please do not leave it until late, because if any document is missing from your application, we won't be able to look at your application. And then after January, our admission team starts making a decision on all of the students that have applied to us. And by the end of March, we will send a decision. Now, you're probably asking, but I haven't completed my Apollitarian. How am I going to apply for the program without grades? That is absolutely fine. We ask you to give us a prediction of what your final score on the Apollitarian will be and what you predict to achieve on your two additional A levels. So you apply with predicted grades before you actually finish your degree and you finish your degree. Now, for the most important part of the application, whichever university you apply to in the UK, every single university will ask you, will look at the personal statement. And at the beginning of the presentation, I said that you can apply to 5 programs, 5 universities, but you can only submit to one personal statement to all 5 of them. So what does it mean? It means that you are not applying directly to one university. You are not applying directly to Imperial. You are applying for the subject that you're interested in. So in this case, you will be applying for mechanical engineering. And the personal statement is a very powerful way for you to stand out from other students. They've already achieved the same grades as you, or maybe they have the same ESAT score as you. It's a chance for you to open a dialogue with the admission team and to really show that you are the best suited student to come and study at Imperial. The personal statement is divided in three different questions. The first question is all about why do you want to study this program and this subject. So your motivation for wanting to study mechanical engineering, what subject area you're interested in this case, mechanical engineering, your interest. Perhaps you want to talk about your future plans as well. The second question is what have you done to prepare to study this subject at university? So you can mention irrelevant transferable skills or education achievement that is relevant specifically to mechanical engineering. And then the final question is what have you done to prepare outside of the classroom, outside of school? You can talk about work experiences, you can talk about personal life experiences, any extracurricular or supercurricular activities as well. Now, what does it mean, supercurricular activities? I'm sure we are all familiar with extracurricular activities. Those are the ones that you take outside of school. It could be maybe a sport, it could be a personal hobby that you have. Supercurricular, however, they are, yes, still taken outside of school, but they are related to the subject that you're going to be studying. So is there any additional academic reading or podcast that you listened that is related to mechanical engineering? Maybe you are going to an exhibition, or maybe you're carrying on a personal project, or you attended some test lectures specifically in this subject, or they're giving you the opportunity to explore mechanical engineering further. Anything that shows a mission tutor that even in your spare time at the weekend, you are very keen, you're very passionate to learn more about mechanical engineering. Okay, so personal statement don't. Now, there isn't like a magic formula as well when you structure your personal statement. It's 4,000 characters, and each question is 350 characters. We said that the question number 1 and 2 are the most important questions. So 90% of your personal statement should cover the first 2 questions, and then the last 10% pick 2 or 3 supercurricular or extracurricular activities that are relevant to the program. But make sure that when you write your personal statement, you do not leave out any supporting evidence. It's not enough to say that you have leadership skills. Give a specific example of when you demonstrated the specific skills. Very important to not just write down or tell us how much you would love to come and study Imperial, because the same personal statement gets sent to 5 universities if you've chosen 5 universities. So another university will not be pleased to hear about your love for Imperial. Make sure that you do not exaggerate, lie, or plagiarize. We have software that they can detect this. But also, if you come in the interview, the professor will ask you about anything that sounds a bit odd, okay? Make sure as well that the personal statement is personal to you. Do not go online and start reading, okay, these students have done this and go entry, because we want to know you, no one else, okay? Do not repeat any other information that is anywhere else. So we don't need to know your academic injuries, history, because we can see that. Please do not put any extenuating circumstances. So let's say there's something happened while you were taking your exams, or maybe your cat died, or your dog was ill, and you were really sad, and you failed the exam. Do not write that in the personal statement. That goes in a different section that your teacher will fill out. The personal statement is purely about academics and your academic interest for the subject. And please do not use any relevant or excessive quotes. I like to use this example from my colleague at LSE University. She said that 1 year they had over 200 applications, all started with the same Nelson Mandela quote. So if you're starting with a quote, please start again. Again, what we want to know is why you want to study this course. Give us examples of academic interests or other projects that you carried on, maybe some Olympiads that you're taking part in. You might want to talk about careers aspiration. How do you plan to use the degree after when you graduate? Maybe you want to talk about any voluntary work or experience related to the subject. If it's not related to the subject, please do not waste any characters and avoid it. And please do show us that you have understanding of the subject outside of school, that you've read anything in the newspaper or in the news, if there's been something that is related again to the specific course. Now, just very briefly to see just some frequently asked questions. So, what if you are an award winner at an international competition? Does that guarantee your place? No, of course it doesn't. You could come last as well, but it's more about the experience and the knowledge, and now you used it, and now you talk about in the personal statement. Do you have to use all 4,000 characters? Yes, trying to use as much as possible. It's actually not that many characters, and what you find that you probably don't have enough space to tell us all about your amazing achievements and amazing work that you've done. And we already mentioned about exceptional or extenuating circumstances. So if for some reason you had any illness in the family or a personal illness, do not mention that in personal statement, please. Okay, so again, just a clear deadline of like how it works. So you completed your application in January. By May, you need to make a decision. And then by June, there is like the deadline for you guys to reply. So you will need to pick two choices out of five, your firm and insurance choice at the end. And then most students, UK students, we receive their results in July and August, and then in September, October, you will start university. Right. If you'd like to know more about Imperial, you can, as I said, I mentioned, you can visit us. We run loads of online events. We run campus tours every Wednesdays. If you're applying for the following year, we have open days in the summer as well. And if you are applying in a couple of years' time, we also have a global summer school, which is for 16 and 17 years old. It's a 2 weeks residential school where the first week is focused on the subject that you're going to be studying. And then the second week, you try and solve a world challenge, but with a focus on entrepreneurship, really to give you a taste of what Imperial is like and what it would be like being a student at Imperial. It runs once in July and once in August, and application open in August.